welcome to our podcast, In the Middle of It. Your host, Alexis here, and my husband, Will.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
Are you ready for this?
I guess.
So in today's episode, we're going to be sharing our story of being two people who loved each other, we married young, we loved God, and we spent years pursuing Him, but separately instead of together. We'll talk about how that shaped our marriage, affected our home, and how we parented our daughters, and how God opened our eyes to the need for unity. Most importantly, we'll share how learning to seek Him together began changing not only our relationship with God, but our relationship with each other. So before we jump in, are you enjoying this beautiful rainy weather we're having?
You mean that we've had for the last 2 weeks and probably another week at least? Yeah, loving it.
Yeah. So we needed the rain, but our youngest daughter is out for the summer, and she's just heartbroken that it's going to be raining her whole break. So either way.
Oh, no, you can't take her to the pool. All right. So, all right. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. We dated, started dating young, 16 and 19. We had a shared faith. We went to church together. We met at church. But our experience in that, through dating in the early part of our marriage was very different. As we, like I said, we shared our faith, but we weren't necessarily pursuing our faith together. So talk a little bit about how that affected you and what your experience in that was.
Well, we were raised differently. I was raised in the church, so I grabbed hold of the faith really young, but something I had to learn throughout life, much later in life, that I was still lacking spiritual maturity. So when you're kind of raised in the church, sometimes you can fall victim to relying on the church. So for me, it was go to church on Sunday, go to church on Wednesday, go to children's church, Bible school. I needed those things, but what I started noticing is when I left church, it's like the tank would slowly get empty. And I was like, I got to get back to church to feel something. It took me years to realize that I wasn't really even opening my Bible. I would pray, but I was not pursuing God more intimately than surface level. And that doesn't carry you through the hard things. And I always had my insecurities and my issues, but it was later in life that I actually realized the depth of my mental health, having get married and have children and experiencing things like postpartum depression. Mm-hmm. So these are things that I realized were going to affect me so much more through life.
Yeah.
And in our marriage.
Yeah. I mean, whether it be the culture of where we each grew up. I wasn't raised in church at all. I didn't start going until I was 17, but started going to the same church as you. And while yes, it was encouraged, on a surface level, it felt like to study at home. It really did feel like that culture lent itself to coming and getting your tank filled.
Yeah.
And not feeding yourself throughout the week, but coming and get fed Sundays and Wednesdays and, and various events. But, and I think, that tendency kind of laid the groundwork, for, like you said, spiritual immaturity. And that we carried that into our marriage. That tendency to not seek outside of church, that was a detriment to us both individually, and I think it was detrimental to our marriage early on. We didn't have, and we weren't even pushed toward marriage counseling.
Yeah, nobody told us.
Not even a little bit.
Our pastor didn't even tell us.
No, we were pretty much encouraged to, marry young, start popping out kids, which more or less is kind of what we did.
My family definitely pushed towards that, but I was a little more surprised about yours. I think it was more your parents were dealing with their own issues, and it was like, okay, just do what you're going to do, because your parents were a little bit different in that way, I think. I don't think they were like encouraging us to run out and get married. They just didn't stop it.
At that point, they were living their own lives with their own new spouses, and there wasn't a ton of parental guidance for me because, one, they were divorced, so in my mind, what marriage advice could they give anyways? I wasn't going to ask them.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that within our church, we weren't encouraged to seek any sort of marital counseling before we entered the covenant of marriage.
We were very young when we got married. So we dated for 6 years before we got married. So I was a baby. I was 16. And then when we got married, so you're 3 years older than me. I was 16, you were 19. And we married, I was 22 and you were 25.
22, yeah, and almost 25 for me, yeah.
Now that we have an almost 20-year-old, that's unreal that we just thought we were so ready for marriage.
Because I think about, you being 22 when we got married, and you had just turned 22.
Yeah, that
and
month.
Savannah being almost 20, I'm like, there's just no way in my mind that she's anywhere close to being mature enough and ready. You were very different at that age. You were very independent. You had your own job, you made your own money. She is not. I mean, she does have. She has a job, but she relies on us heavily.
I was one of 5 kids.
Yeah.
And Savannah was one of 2 and the first one. So I think that matters a little bit.
It does. But I mean, we spent a lot of our early marriage doing our own thing, in church. I played on praise team, and that was kind of my thing. I played guitar. I was up on stage every Sunday. Most Sundays we weren't going to church together because I had to be there early, or there were times I was playing at a different church.
Yeah. When we first got married, you were at a completely different church, and I was just going to my home church. We were not in church together as newlyweds.
No, and that definitely laid some shaky groundwork. I think in hindsight, and we didn't see it then.
No, but
maybe
you
we did a little
say
bit,
someone came up to you in the church you were going to, I think. I remembered you telling me they said you need to be in church with your wife.
Yeah.
Wherever that is, you need to do it together. I was like, that's the only advice that I think we ever got that was like, hey, do it this way.
Yeah, because really even at, our church, what would be my home church and the church you grew up in, I didn't hear a ton of encouragement, or advice to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't, especially early in your marriage, you shouldn't be going to separate churches. Maybe you heard it from some people, but I don't know.
I mean, it didn't feel right, but not to dive in that too much, but growing up, even though my dad's dad was our pastor as a kid, he was a bishop, my dad didn't start going to church till much later in life. Mm-hmm. So to me, some of that felt familiar. It felt a little familiar that, oh, well, I'm going to church, and even though you're going somewhere else, didn't feel so off.
Here it is 20 years later, and that's the first time, I think, maybe the first time you've expressed that to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you may have thought it yourself, but I don't know that you've ever said that to me in that way, at least, that you kind of did see it almost as familiar. I won't say normal, but, it wasn't abnormal, I guess, because you were used to your mom and dad not going to church together.
Yeah, she drug us to church, and my dad worked around the clock, and that's what seemed normal as a kid. Even though I didn't want that, that's what I knew.
Yeah, interesting. I never really put those two things together.
See?
All right.
Still learning.
So, at what point did you start seeing the cracks from that? I mean, we were both pursuing God. We weren't living in sin. We weren't living for the world. But we were just doing it on our own terms and not doing it together. And that's, as we know now, that's not enough. Being married, you can't have individual pursuits of God. I mean, you can, but those individual pursuits have to be under the larger umbrella of pursuing together. But we weren't doing that. So
I think we had a lot of maturing as individuals, and these two people got married. And so what was happening is I was always insecure. I had low confidence, and that, back when we were smaller, you didn't hear things like ADHD and anxiety. You weren't labeled all these things. So I was walking around with ADD, anxiety, just forms of mental health that I didn't know. So I always label myself, well, you're dumb, because I struggled so bad in school academically, and it was those things that I struggled with, ADD. And so when we got married, all of that came with me. And so I always saw you as what they call that in the small town church. You had the sexy job at church because you were on the stage, you had the talent, and it wasn't that our church was called it that. It just felt that way. It felt like if you're on the stage or you're a pastor or you're a singer, like you're more significant maybe than the nursery worker or something.
Because you're up there and you're in front of everybody. There are eyes on you. You know, people recognize you and they come up to you after church. Oh, you did such a good job. Well, hey, it's not about me, but thanks.
Nobody's really coming to you in the nursery and saying, you wiped my child's rear end very well. So for me, it just felt, I fell into a place where I felt insecure because you always were outgoing and smart and confident. And even though we learned much later in life that you had walls up too, you were really good at disguising yourself as this is really who I am. I am mature. I am smart. And so how we carried that in our marriage was I was always kind of on eggshells that like, what if he leaves me? What if he finds someone that can sing and he just is more attracted to her in life? And this stuff just bothered me all the time. But I kind of laid out the doormat for you to, keep going. Like, okay, you go to church early on Sunday. You go to, what was it that Dusty started his college? My brother started college
Friday
and career.
Night Battle, yeah.
It was Friday Night Battle, and then it turned into...
Penflow, and then Penflow turned into a college and career ministry,
right.
and
but
morphed a couple of times.
I don't know if we were going to that at first together. I think at first it was, we went together.
We went a few times together,
but
yeah.
To fast forward a little bit, when we had our first child, that's when it really, I think, came to the surface.
Yeah.
It was, I'm this new mom. I was so lost in life. I didn't have this, neither one of us had a career path, and it just blew us in the face with, oh, you have to provide for this child now. And we had a high-risk pregnancy. So I just went through so much that I fell into postpartum depression, which wasn't diagnosed till she was like 9 months. Mm-hmm. That was when we started realizing, I started really noticing, we're not really praying together. We're going to church and we're praying individually. Sometimes I would even notice you would go on a fast and I wouldn't. I don't really know why or the details. I think you would encourage me to, and I just wouldn't. But the point of it is we were really pursuing God on different levels, and I wasn't pursuing enough. You would ask me to walk through the Bible with you, and I honestly would just be like, I don't know about that, because I just kind of saw the Bible as boring. You get into the Bible and you get to like Leviticus or something, and I didn't read in this. So even as an adult, I was relying on the pastor and the conferences to carry me, and you were pursuing a little more than I was. But what was happening is this was all a breeding ground for, you're going to kind of pursue God and I'm going to pursue him in my way. And when the hard times came, that's when it revealed itself. I think.
Yeah, that's when the cracks started forming, or they weren't forming. The cracks were there. They started revealing themselves. And they started revealing themselves through things that at first seemed like blessings or seemed like they were progressive. Things were getting better. I mean, one area they started revealing themselves when I started the business, as supplemental income to my full-time job. And it was taking me away, from the house 3 and 4 nights a week. I'd come home for like an hour, turn around and go to the shop. Well, it was in our basement at first, but
so by this time we had our second child, and so we're not going into very personal details. We're just trying to kind of build a foundation of who we are. So we had our second child by then, and we had a hard time getting pregnant that time because pregnancy didn't come easy to us.
Yeah, I mean, they're 7.5 years apart, and that was not by design.
Took us a
not
while.
Not by our design, anyway.
No, it took us a while to get pregnant, but we did. We didn't have to do in vitro or anything like that. But when we had Savannah, you lost your job. Or Millie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You lost your job.
Yep.
And it was terrifying because I had C-section and hernia surgery back to back, and here you are like jobless. And so in the process of that, you started doing research, and that's how kind of like Elster was born. But then you got a job. Your dad got you the interview with the company you work for today.
Yep.
And you're still there, but you took that job, but you even said, it was kind of, you didn't know if you'd keep it.
Yeah, I felt like at first, the position I was taking, it felt like a step backwards from where I'd come from. But in the back of my mind, even though I was taking that job, and it was a good job with a good company. In fact, it's a company that professes, the ownership professes faith in Jesus Christ. The company tithes. Great company to work for. Great, great mission statement, all that wonderful stuff. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I need to develop something for myself just in case that ever happens again. That I'm not, if I'm ever jobless, I have this thing to fall back on. And I was relying on me. I was 100% relying on me to make my way. I wasn't really leaning on God for that provision then. And it was like a year later. But we ended up starting the business.
Well, you wanted to start it with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd gone through all this stuff with the business with my dad, and it was finally stabilized.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not postpartum with this child. The business is busy. I'm embracing this season. I was happy. And so I was just like, no. But then you were like, well, I'm still going to do it. So you just kind of like found a partner, which was somebody we knew.
Yep.
And it was born right there in our basement. But the thing is, I was in such a good season. I was so happy at that time in my life. I went through like kind of a upward time in my life where I was just happy. And I saw it as opportunity. You had Elster. You had your new job. I had the business was blooming. You remember the Zach Seaball from The Voice. Like he came into town. He didn't make it, but he was like a runner-up maybe.
Yeah.
And so you had an opportunity to be in a band with him. And as a wife, because I did love you, I wanted to support that. And I was in a good place to do it. And so you got to kind of play on some big stages and have fun and do that. But what it looked like was we had 3 jobs between the two of us. We had 2 children. One was small. And then you had this Zach Seabaugh, and then you were playing other churches sometimes because they were paying gigs. This was all just like, it hit a wall is what happened. After about 8 years into it, it just hit a wall, I think.
Well, it was, that first or second year of me having the business, we were still in the basement. That's when I started playing with Zach Seaball, and it was either I was working full time, I was running the screen print shop, or I was going to rehearsals and going to gigs and stuff, and I was busy.
You were busy.
I was busy, and we had a 1-year-old at home.
We felt kind of like an afterthought, and at first I just defended you when people would ask me. I would go to like a meeting with the church because I worked in the nursery. I was actually the nursery coordinator or whatever you want to call me, and where's Will? And I would just always defend, he's doing this and he's living his best life, because as a wife I wanted to support you. I didn't want people to say like he should be home or whatever, but deep down it was a breeding ground for problems. And that all came to a head around age, I just know I was 38 when this all it got unbearable for me, and we talked about it. But we were talking about it, and you're like, you know what, you're right, this is like, I started abusing alcohol. I felt the depression coming on, and we were drinkers, but we were very it was very here and there. What would you call it?
It's just casual.
Casual.
Yeah.
Every once in a while. We didn't even do it that often. But what happened is your partners with the business, like they were the only friends that we had that drank. So we didn't go out and get drunk, but we would drink like at dinner with them or on vacation with them.
Sure.
So what happened though is I noticed that alcohol can bring that sense of comfort. It can relax you. It can even give you this like sexual feeling. So I started thinking alcohol might be the problem solver. And so when my doctor was like, you're going into, I think he called it like PMDD at the time, because women go through so much, and he advised me to go on medication. And see, I said, no, I'm not gaining 80 pounds and going through that stuff again. And so I sat on the couch and made a conscious decision. I'm going to self-medicate. And from there was a whole addiction that was going to brew in our marriage. But we couldn't focus on closing the business because COVID.
Yeah.
COVID hit, and everything went to just absolute crap, really.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, when COVID hit, about 6 months later, I think I did offer up, to sell my half of the business, to my business partner. I mentioned to say, hey, buy me out. Yeah. But then before that really had a chance to happen, COVID hit close to home.
COVID at first started out as just everybody scared. We're making jokes about toilet paper shortage and we're trying to make the best out of it. Our kids were virtually having to learn. Schools were closed down. Yeah. But then Delta hit.
Yeah, the Delta strain came along and your dad got sick.
It hit our business and it hit, people in our business first. And then it ultimately did hit my dad. And that is such a bigger story. But he did pass away to COVID.
Yep.
And so that also meant not only did I lose my father, we lost our business.
Yep.
So the alcohol spiraled. And what was happening is this is all parts of not trusting God a lot in our marriage because I freaked out. And I remember I was like, what are we going to do? I wasn't a breadwinner, but my income was needed. And I asked you, what are we going to do? And instead of holding hands and praying or just really trusting God, we didn't do that. I remember immediately calling a realtor, and we had our house on the market and moved out in a month. In a month, 2 months from the time that my dad passed away. And where did we move? In with my mother. And that wasn't God's plan. And he showed us that it was not his plan because he had things lined up for us to work out. And we chose to do it our way. But he's merciful. And thankfully he's merciful. But we had to live with those consequences. But what was really revealing itself is our lack of turning to him as a couple. We were trying to do this our way.
Yeah.
And so these issues were coming to the surface now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the truth. We even though we made that decision together, we weren't seeking God in making that decision together. You were in immense grief, and you weren't in any position to really make any kind of decision like that.
No.
And I think at that point, I'd become so emotionally walled off that, I wasn't really available for you to lean on. I mean, you did because I'm your husband, but I was there, but I wasn't there. I think through that, though, I really started to see how much you needed our marriage to be strong and centered on God. And it still took a long time, but I think at that point, seeing those cracks, that one especially made me realize, okay, we've got to make a change. And it was a slow metamorphosis to get from there to here. I mean, because
when you're dealing with addiction, that took root and that took hold of me, and it affected our marriage in a very, very big way. So it was really hard to pursue God and get in line when we were also pursuing other churches. And then we had to put that on hold. Everything was changing. We went from a very mundane, familiar life to just losing so much. I mean, we just lost, and we just kept losing.
Well, and just change, tons and tons of change in a very short period of time. It kind of revealed that, our foundation that we thought we had was not as strong as we thought it was.
You can love each other and you can I prayed at 14 years old, and I know God heard me, and he knew our future. He saw us sitting here right now. He saw our future. So I know to this day you are the one. I don't question that. I prayed that he would spare me of a lot of relationships because I was a tomboy. I liked sports. I was like, I don't want a lot of relationships. I definitely don't want sexual partners. I want one. And God absolutely showed up for me in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I was doing a little research for this and some things that I ran across that I think about, if we had built our life on some scriptures, even just a few, we may have had a better foundation to lean on in those really trying times. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, 2 are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either one of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. I think in the tough times, we weren't there to help each other up.
No.
Not at first. And that was when the cracks started showing and they really revealed themselves. We weren't there to pick each other up. We really weren't encouraging each other. a
No,
lot.
we also had developed this like parenting each other
Yes.
attitude. And I don't know if it's because we married young or what it was, but when you fall into a pattern of parenting your spouse, it's like a death sentence to your marriage. And
Yeah,
you
it's
don't know it until
Yeah, that's
later
a
in life.
tough pattern to break
It's
because
an
you
awful
develop
pattern.
that over time, and like you said, marrying young, I mean, you got to teach each other things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at any point when two people get married, they have to teach each other things
Yeah.
in some respect, but given both of our upbringing, I think there were a lot of things that, both of our parents failed to teach us.
Yeah.
And we had to learn it ourselves and figure. I mean, there were things that, your parents may have instilled in you that mine didn't in me, and you were having to teach me that, and vice versa. But we did fall into, rather than partnering with each other, we fell into parenting each other.
Yeah, and it was awful because some of the things I would say to you, the way you would talk to me, if I was messing up or not doing something right, the way that you talked to me was very parent like, that is not how you do it, like the way you would talk to your child.
Yeah.
And so we see it now, but at the time we didn't realize what we were doing. It just felt bad. This is the person you love, you care about. If you're talking to them like that, there's another crack in your marriage. Somebody else gives you attention or anything, you're going to entertain it because your husband or your wife's over here belittling you or talking to you like a child, and that's your partner. That's the person that's supposed to love you and like caress you and make you feel safe and feminine or tough, whatever we were supposed to do, we were lacking really bad. And so what happened is, yes, we always loved each other. It was never, well, maybe y'all should have, you weren't meant to be, get a divorce. No, it's a lot of people fall into this pattern.
Yeah.
Life gets hard, parenting gets hard, children get hard, and then you start pinning against each other.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of, I think over the years, a lot of resentment built up.
Yep.
And there were definitely times that rather than partners, we felt like adversaries
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. From how we wanted to handle kids to, how we wanted to handle finances, and even just simple stuff, just house repairs and things like that. It was just adversary.
Every decision that we had to make, even vacations,
Yeah.
it was like an argument maybe.
Yeah.
We didn't fight, but we argued and we just parented each other. It was
Yeah.
it's just awful. And how did we change that? Like, how did we recognize it?
Well, like I said, in the hard times and in your dad passing away and selling Elster and of course with your dad passing away and his business closing down, you being out of work,
We're down to one job now.
yeah, went from 3 jobs to 1 job.
1.5.
Yeah, and I think it got to a point where we finally realized, you know what, we've been doing this our own way for way too long.
The consequences
Yeah.
of alcohol were taking a toll. And I tried to start a business way too early on. And I remember I came to you, and this was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back when I was like, can you support me while I do this? Because I was working for a photography company, and it was very commission only. And I wanted to walk away. And I asked you, and you were just like, nope, sorry, like, I can't, I'll have to dash or something. But it was so nonchalant. And to me, it was a big thing. It was a big deal for me to have that support. But to you, I think you didn't even look at me. So you didn't see the magnitude of how it weighed on me. And so I fell into a really, really darker place that I won't get into. But it's like those consequences and some of my actions, some of the things that I did is what led us here. They were so bad that it was like, we're either going to divorce from this or we're going to fix it. And so in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, I have so much shame from all the things that I've done just over the past few years. But had those things not happened, we wouldn't be here. So I wouldn't go back and do it again. But what God did is he showed up and he showed us through hard things and brokenness, I can still work with you.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the turnaround happened when we both realized that we cannot do this on our own. And we needed to refocus our attention on our relationship, not individually with God, but our relationship as a married couple with God. Part of that took, it took some change in environment. I'll just put it that way. we did start going to a new church a little over 4 years ago now. Of course, when we did start, you were still deep in your addiction.
Yeah. We started looking for a church before
We did.
my dad even passed away. But when he passed away and COVID came, all of that got put on hold.
Right.
But the reason we were looking for a church was we were just we had hit a wall with our church. Everybody knows everybody. We weren't cheering each other on anymore. We loved each other. But we recognized we know each other too much. We're too comfortable. We'd message each other across the church and hey, and make jokes. And where that seems fun, I got lost in that. And I was broken. And when my dad passed away, I tried to go back to church, and it was like God spoke to me like, this is not for you anymore. I was so broken that I was like the one looking for a hospital. And for me, that was going to be environment change. It's not to say that the church couldn't show up for me. It was that wasn't the church for me. And God was showing me, and he put it on our heart like one night.
It was a Saturday night.
A Saturday night out of left field where I started crying because I said, I want to go to church tomorrow, but I don't know where, because I don't want to go where we've been going. And it's taken some time, but I feared that, because I was like, if we go there, it's going to be like all these people, and all the fear and all the insecurity escalated before we went. But as soon as we went, I had this peace and this calm. And that first message revealed so much to us. And what had to happen is I was like, well, who am I going to sit next to? Because when you go to a small town church, and I sat next to my dad every Sunday, or my mom, well, who am I going to sit? You get focused on things like that.
Yeah.
And they're silly things. And now I'm like, I love sitting next to a stranger, because I've realized it is not about who you're sitting next to or who you're going to talk to after service is over. It's about Jesus. And I lift my hands and I praise now, because I'm not focused on the wrong things.
Right.
And that was a big
sometimes
deal.
that feeling of anonymity, can't say the word, anonymity, that you get from going somewhere you've never been. Nobody knows you. They're not going to look at you and be like, oh, that person's doing something different than they do every single week. They don't know who you are. They don't know if you lift your hands and sing or not.
Yeah, they didn't know. And that was what I needed.
Yeah.
So church definitely helped us in the marriage, and helped us individually, because I was spiritually immature, and I wanted to dive into the Bible. And so I started doing that more.
Yeah.
Because surface level Christianity is not going to carry you through loss. It's not going to carry you through brokenness. So diving into the Bible shows you that comfort and that intimacy with Jesus that you need, that the Word's going to give you. You start reading the stories of David, and you start reading all these stories, and you realize, oh, some of these people were broken too.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, everybody in the Bible is perfect. Well, you read the Bible for yourself. I heard the stories, but I probably barely listened. You read the brokenness in the Bible. A
lot of the people were just an absolute mess.
Absolute mess. I mean, murderers and drunks. It just makes you realize, oh, okay, so I relate to some of this.
Yep. Yeah. I think, too, one of the things that helped us a lot going to a new church, being unfamiliar with people there, it forced us to focus more on each other, because there really wasn't as soon as service is over, let's all go hang out in the lobby and chit chat for half an hour with our friends. Where are we going to go out to eat? Yeah. What are we going to do during the week? We didn't have any of that to worry about.
Complete culture shock.
Not that we didn't still have our friends from our old church, but they weren't right in front of our face, and we weren't right in front of theirs. So,
well, you remember after church, I would always look for Suzanne, because my instinct was meet up with somebody. That's what you do.
Right.
And I was like, why isn't she doing that? Like, she's not even looking for me. What was happening is I was having to learn a different way of doing things.
Right.
And now I love it this way.
Sure.
I do miss my friends, and I do miss going to Longhorn with my parents, but that was over.
Yep.
Either way you look at it, that season had passed.
Yeah, I think in the older scenario, in our old church, there was a level of FOMO. I think you had to get with the group, because you didn't want to miss out on something.
If you didn't go to something, it was noticed, because it was small.
But like I said, it forced us to turn inward into our marriage and into our family, and really start, spending time together. And really, I think because of that, we started having more intentional conversations. We started having a lot of God-centered conversations that we didn't have a whole lot of before. I mean, we would have them.
Let's just be honest. We got distracted, like you
Sure.
said, FOMO, and it's
Yeah.
not to blame anybody. Half of them are my family.
Yeah.
But it was a pattern that we fell into of like, what are we going to do next week? What fun are we going to have? We're going to slide and rock, and that stuff.
It was
That
fun,
stuff
though.
was so fun. And I still want to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was like my identity at that point. It wasn't going to church to really praise and focus on God.
Yeah.
It was really like, what are we going to do next? Or
And
what are we
within
having?
and within that, there wasn't a lot of encouragement either. There was a lot of, a lot of keeping up with the Joneses. In honesty, First
we were pumping
Thessalonians.
into each other
Yeah,
in places we shouldn't.
yeah. First Thessalonians says we're supposed to encourage one another, build each other up. But it just seemed like, a phrase my dad would say a lot: familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah.
I think we were around people too much, and a lot, and not just us, but really within the entire.
Well, in the Bible, it actually
Yeah.
talks about that, and I can't tell you where. I'll find it maybe for the next one, but it talks about like being careful, being in groups, too big of a group or whatever.
We'll have to
because
find
it
that.
says, it talks about, because I remember this stuck out to me when I felt like God was speaking to me. I was like, oh, now it makes sense. It's not about picking out those people and blaming them for anything. We were part of that pattern.
Right.
We were part of the pattern. So it was more like we got exhausted and then grief kicked in. Our marriage was suffering. It's like we needed to change something for us, and it was going to look like starting over. But in the Bible, it talks clearly of like only have those kind of relationships really with those deep, intimate relationships with your spouse, because it's a breeding ground for like comparison
Yeah.
and jealousy. And those things were happening because it was almost like, I will say that there is a such thing of being too close
Yeah.
to a group of people. And you do have to kind of set some boundaries.
Well, I think God really did move in our hearts to direct us to where we are now. That, like I said, it forced us to turn inward and focus on each other, focus on God together rather than individually. And now, I mean, we it's very different from the last 20 something years, these last 3 or 4, where we really are just almost every day, we have some kind of deep God-centered conversation where we really talk things out. And it's the same marriage. We're the same people, but I think our focus is different. I think our appreciation for each other is different through all that, because we're learning more about each other now that we're seeking Him together, and it's making everything stronger. I think. Don't you
No, it
agree?
is. I mean, I don't know the exact reason for it either, but like we were just not leaning into each other. And like
Right.
if something was going on in your life, I think it was just convenient for you to go to the shop and just maybe share that with Jamie, or don't share it at all. We were busy and we were distracted.
Oh, I like to bury things in my work, for sure.
Well, we were distracted. And so now it's like we're quiet. What did the pastor talk about yesterday? Solitude.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a place of solitude, but in a way that God's able to work through us.
Well, and what did he say? He said there's a difference between loneliness and solitude.
Yeah.
Loneliness, how did he say it? I'm going to butcher it, I'm sure.
Well, it's
But
okay.
Loneliness is being by yourself
Yeah.
without God, but solitude is different because you can be by yourself, but you're not alone because God is there.
Yeah.
And whereas a lot of the times we're together, we're in solitude together with God, if that makes sense.
I still have to get used to it, and you'll learn that I'm a sarcastic person in these things. That's my personality, but I still find myself like I'm having to get used to it. I'm like, why is he calling me every
Yeah.
minute now? Like, you call me a lot, you show me attention. I want it, I need it, I feel feminine. I used to have this wall up that was like, I'm tough girl, like nobody gonna mess with me. But that wall was not tough. It was a way of like protecting myself from rejection and from hurt or from feeling bad. And so now I've kind of tore that wall down. I've allowed you to make me feel kind of safe and protected, which a husband is supposed to do that. And so, but I still have moments where I'm like, my mom be like, Alexis, just enjoy it. Because I'm like, why? I can't even go to the grocery store. He's calling me. I can't go ahead on it in our hike. You were like, the flood is rising. I said, I'm not used to this. Like, in our marriage, I could literally disappear for a whole day, and like, you didn't check on me. This was new to me to have you do this.
I've flipped it over on you now. I'm getting on your nerves.
Now you're getting on my nerves, but I really want this. I just have to get used to it. Like, I'm not used to you
Right.
pumping into me and like wanting me. I feel wanted and needed. And I don't think it's that you didn't want me before. It just, you buried yourself in everything.
Yeah,
Your
well,
music,
and-
your work.
And I think the difference too is through the changes that we've gone through in the last few years, I've learned to, and I still enjoy the other things that I used to put my time into. I still enjoy tinkering in the basement and,
Well, yeah, you have to have
playing
hobbies.
guitar and stuff. But I found that I enjoy first spending time with you and being around you. And yes, I get obnoxious because I just am.
We've
But-
always had fun together. We
Yeah.
were never the couple that didn't have fun together. We love hiking.
Sure.
We have things that we enjoy. It was never about that. Like, oh, you have to go your way and I have to go my way. It was never like that. But it's just different now. When we do go hiking, it's more intentional. We talk about things now. We don't just hike and like tune everything out. We talk and we just enjoy things in a different level.
Yeah, no, sometimes we go on a walk or a hike and I see you bring your headphones and I'm like, but I want to talk.
And I'm still stuck in that, but you don't talk. So I'm gonna like listen. Like, we're still learning and we're
Yeah.
still on the
Oh, we're definitely still learning. I don't think we'll ever have it 100% figured out because the more we pursue together, the more we pursue our relationship, the more we pursue God in that relationship, I think he's going to continue revealing things to us about him, about each other, and about what he wants for us and from us and wants to do for us.
Well, it's only taken us 40-something years to get here. Not 40, like just our age,
Yeah.
because we had to break down our walls
Sure.
to have our marriage work out.
But as a married couple, I mean, it's taken us
It's taken
22
us 22
years to get to this
to
point.
get here.
And yes, like I said, we still have a lot to learn, but
But that's kind of why we're doing this. And we just kind of we're not experts. We are not qualified. We are just everyday people with everyday jobs, raising our children and going through it. And that's kind of why we're doing this, is just share our journey and learn. I can't say it. Learn along the way.
Yep. I mean, yeah, you guys could tell we're not professional podcasters
Clearly.
at all.
We're just bringing a different version. We're a
Yeah.
needle in that haystack, but we're, I think, a unique needle.
Yeah.
I think we're fun.
I hope so. But we don't have all the answers. We may not have any answers, but that's all right.
We're going to be
But,
real.
Yeah, but we're just going to continue. We're going to continue pursuing God together. We're going to continue growing and learning, and enjoying each other and enjoying being in His presence together. But yeah, I think that's all we've got for today.
We have so much coming, though, because we want to dive into some of those things
Yeah.
that we didn't go into too much today.
Yeah, some of
Like-
the things we touched on here, we'll
Be
go
podcasts.
into deeper in other episodes and try not to ramble too much when we do it, right?
Well, I mean, that's part of how a podcast can go, is
Yeah.
engaging with each other. Like, we're not going to just be statues and reading
No.
off a teleprompter. So,
But we'll figure it out as we go.
yep. So you don't know what's coming next because we don't either, but it'll be fun.
All right. Thanks for listening.